They told me my father left me nothing, but the night my dog started digging beneath the floor, I realized someone was still watching that house. I thought I was just coming to sign papers and walk away with whatever little was left. A broken-down cottage, unpaid taxes, nothing worth staying for. But my dog, Koda, he wouldn't stop staring at the walls, the floors, the dark corners like something was wrong. And when he finally dug up what was hidden beneath that house, everything I believed about my father changed. This wasn't abandonment. It was something else, something dangerous. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. The digital clock on the nightstand flipped from 3:16 to 3:17. Lucas Grant was already awake. He came up fast. My breath caught halfway between a gasp and a command. His hand shot out into the dark, fingers curling around nothing, gripping air like it should have been steel and polymer. For a split second, his body was somewhere else. Heat, dust, rotor blades chopping the sky into pieces. Then the silence hit. No gun, no radio chatter, no distant pop of contact. Just the low hum of a dying refrigerator and the faint rattle of loose siding against the Idaho wind. Lucas sat there, shoulders tight, eyes open but unfocused. His hand slowly lowered, resting on his knee. The muscle memory drained out of him in stages, like something leaking through cracks he couldn't seal. On the floor beside the bed, Koda lifted his head. The German shepherd didn't bark. He never did at moments like this. He just watched, ears forward, eyes locked, waiting. Now Lucas exhaled through his nose, long and controlled. He reached down without looking, his fingers brushing the thick fur behind Koda's ear. The dog leaned into it slightly, grounding him in a way nothing else could. "Stand down," Lucas muttered, voice rough from disuse. Koda didn't move until Lucas did. That was the rule. The trailer was cold. It always was at that hour. Lucas swung his legs off the bed and stood, joints stiff, weight shifting automatically to avoid the loose board near the door. He'd mapped every inch of this place without thinking about it. Habit. Survival didn't turn off just because the war did. He crossed to the sink, splashed water on his face, and stared at his reflection in the cracked mirror. Same eyes. Older. He didn't stay there long. By the time the sun started bleeding through the thin curtains, Lucas was already outside. The air smelled like dry grass and metal, the kind of morning that didn't promise anything. Koda followed close, always half a step behind and to the left. They moved through the same routine. Check the perimeter. Walk the fence line that barely stood. Scan the horizon without making it obvious. No threats, no movement. Just open land and distant hills. Quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Lucas didn't think about that. He just moved. It was near noon when the truck came. Lucas heard it before he saw it. The low grind of tires on gravel, steady and unhurried. His body reacted before his mind caught up. He stepped to the side of the trailer, out of direct line of sight, eyes narrowing as the vehicle crested the small rise. Old pickup, county plates, not a threat. Still, he didn't step out until the engine cut. Sure, the driver's door opened, and a man in a faded uniform stepped down, holding a clipboard. Postal Service, government issue, safe enough. Lucas approached slowly, Koda pacing with him, silent but alert. "Lucas Grant?" the man asked. Lucas nodded once. "Got something for you. Needs a signature." The clipboard was held out. Lucas took the pen, his grip firm, controlled. He signed without asking questions. Didn't need to. Paperwork always found him eventually. It always did. The envelope was thick, white, clean. It didn't belong out here. Lucas turned it over once in his hand. No return address he recognized. Just his name, typed, precise. Koda stepped closer. The dog's posture changed, subtle, but there. His body angled slightly toward the envelope, nose lifting, catching something in the air Lucas couldn't. Yeah, Lucas muttered under his breath. I see it. The mailman tipped his hat and drove off, leaving dust hanging in the air. Lucas stood there a moment longer before heading back inside. He didn't open it right away. The envelope sat on the small table near the window, while Lucas moved through the trailer, checking locks, adjusting a loose hinge, running through motions that filled time without requiring thought. Koda never took his eyes off it. Finally, Lucas sat down. The chair creaked under his weight. He picked up the envelope, thumb pressing against the seal. It felt heavier than it should have. He tore it open clean. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Legal letterhead. Clean lines. Formal language. He read it once, then again. His jaw tightened slightly, but that was the only sign anything had changed. Mr. Lucas Grant, it began. We regret to inform you. The rest blurred into meaning more than words. His father was dead. Lucas let the paper lower slowly, resting it against his knee. No reaction came. Not at first. The man had been gone long before this letter made it official. Years of silence. No calls. No visits. Nothing but a name on documents Lucas stopped caring about a long time ago. Dead didn't change that. But the letter wasn't finished. Lucas's eyes moved down the page again, slower this time. Sole beneficiary. Property located in Park County, Wyoming. Cottage. Key enclosed. His fingers shifted, feeling the small weight still inside the envelope. He turned it over. A key slipped into his palm. Brass. Old. Worn smooth in places where someone had used it a lot, once. Lucas stared at it for a long moment. Cottage. That was it. That's what the man left behind. Not money. Not anything that mattered. Just a piece of land somewhere off the map, tied to a name Lucas had spent most of his life trying to forget. A muscle in his jaw ticked once. Across from him, Koda stood. The dog moved closer, slow and deliberate, until he was right beside Lucas's knee. His nose hovered near the key, then the paper, then back again. His ears stayed forward, locked on something Lucas couldn't see. Lucas noticed that. He always noticed that. Koda didn't react like this to nothing. Lucas leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing as he watched the dog instead of the letter. You smell something I don't? He asked quietly. Koda didn't answer. He never did. But he didn't look away either. The wind outside picked up, rattling the thin walls of the trailer. Somewhere in the distance, metal clanged against metal, sharp and sudden. Lucas's head turned instinctively toward the sound, body already calculating distance, direction, angle. Then it passed. Silence again. He looked back down at the key in his hand. Wyoming. A boarded-up cottage. A man he hadn't spoken to in years. And a dog that wouldn't stop staring at something that should have meant nothing. Lucas closed his fist around the key. He didn't say anything. But he didn't throw it away either. Across the room, Koda finally sat down, still watching, waiting, like he already knew this wasn't over. Lucas didn't move for a long time after that. The key stayed in his hand, its edges pressing into his palm, just enough to remind him it was real. Outside, the wind shifted again, brushing against the trailer like something testing the walls. Koda finally broke eye contact with the envelope and moved toward the door, pausing just long enough to glance back. Lucas noticed. He always noticed. Yeah, he said quietly, pushing himself up from the chair. We're not done. The next morning came without sleep. Lucas didn't bother trying. By 6 a.m., the truck was already running. The engine coughed twice before settling into a low, steady idle. Koda jumped into the passenger seat without being told, circling once before settling with his head just above the dashboard, eyes forward. Lucas drove. The highway stretched out ahead, long and empty, cutting through miles of land that didn't care who passed through it. His hands rested at 10 and 2, steady, controlled. Every few minutes, his eyes flicked to the mirrors, on old habits, checking angles, checking movement. Nothing followed. Still, he checked. The town where the law office sat felt too clean. Glass buildings, polished sidewalks, people who walked like they had somewhere safe to be. Lucas parked across the street. He didn't get out right away. Instead, he watched. Reflections in windows, people entering and leaving, vehicles slowing, turning. No patterns, no one lingering too long. Koda stayed still beside him, but his ears twitched at every passing sound. "Clear enough," Lucas muttered. They crossed the street together. Inside, the air was different. Cool, filtered. It smelled faintly of paper and something artificial. The kind of place where nothing unexpected was supposed to happen. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes paused for half a second on Lucas's clothes, then on Koda. "Ma, dogs aren't allowed inside," she said, voice polite but firm. Koda didn't react. Lucas didn't either. "He stays," Lucas said. There was no edge in his tone, just a statement. The woman hesitated, then pressed a button on her desk. "Mr. Reeves, your 10 o'clock is here." A door down the hallway opened. "Send him in." Lucas walked past her without another word. Koda followed, silent as a shadow. Daniel Reeves stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He looked like a man who spent too much time sitting still and thinking too much. His eyes landed on Lucas first, then on Koda. A flicker of something crossed his face. Calculation, maybe, or curiosity. "Mr. Grant," he said, extending a hand. Lucas shook it once. Firm. Quick. "Sit." Lucas didn't sit right away. He scanned the room first. Windows, corners, door. No desk. No secondary exits. No blind spots worth noting. Then he sat. Koda positioned himself beside the chair, close enough to touch Lucas's leg, but facing the door. Reeves noticed that too. He didn't comment. "I'll get straight to it," Reeves said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your father's estate is minimal." Lucas didn't open the folder. Reeves continued anyway. "The property is located in Park County, Wyoming. Remote. About 15 miles off the nearest paved road. It's been in your family for some time, though it hasn't been maintained in years." Lucas's eyes dropped briefly to the folder, still unopened. "There are back taxes," Reeves added. "Just over $9,000. The structure itself is—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Not in livable condition." Lucas leaned back slightly in the chair. "Then sell it," he said. Reeves gave a small nod, like he expected that. "That's the practical option. And, as it happens, there's already interest." He reached into the folder and pulled out another document, turning it so Lucas could see. "Red Hollow Development. They've been acquiring land in that region. They're offering $30,000 for the property as is." Lucas's eyes flicked over the number, 30,000, enough to disappear somewhere quieter. Fix the truck. Maybe get something that didn't rattle in the wind every night. Simple. Clean. Reeves slid a pen across the desk. "We can settle the taxes out of the sale. After fees, you'd walk away with just under 20,000. Lucas stared at the pen. Didn't reach for it. Koda shifted slightly. A low sound, barely audible, rolled in his chest, and Reeves's eyes dropped to the dog. "Is that going to be a problem?" he asked. Lucas didn't look at him. No. But he didn't pick up the pen either. Instead, his gaze moved to the photograph clipped to the file. The cottage. Boarded windows. Sagging roof. Trees pressing in from all sides like they were trying to reclaim it. It looked wrong. Not just old. Abandoned in a way that felt deliberate. Lucas's fingers tapped once against the arm of the chair. Reeves noticed that too. "There's really nothing there," he said, his tone softer now. "I've seen the property myself. It's not worth the trouble." Koda's head lifted. His eyes locked on the photo. Then he looked at Lucas. Didn't blink. Lucas felt that. The same way he felt the wind change before a storm. Something small, quiet, but there. "You said 15 miles off-road," Lucas said. Reeves nodded. "Rough terrain. Not easily accessible." Lucas's eyes stayed on the photo. The boards over the windows, like something sealed. "Anyone been out there recently?" Lucas asked. Reeves hesitated. "Not to my knowledge." A pause, then. "Utilities were cut years ago." Lucas leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. Koda stood up. The dog's posture had changed again. Subtle but sharper now. Reeves shifted in his chair. "Mr. Grant, I understand the instinct to—" "I'll take a look first," Lucas said. Reeves stopped. "You're not obligated to—" "I know." Lucas finally reached out. Not for the pen, but for the photo. He pulled it closer, studied it. There was something off about the angle of the front porch, and something in the way the shadows fell near the base of the house. Nothing obvious. Just enough. Koda let out a quiet breath, then settled again, but he didn't relax. Reeves leaned back slowly. "The trip is long," he said, "and I should be clear, there's nothing there for you." Lucas didn't answer right away. He slid the photo back into place, then stood. The chair legs scraped lightly against the floor. "I'll decide after I see it." Reeves watched him for a moment, then reached into a drawer. He pulled out a small object. Another key. This one darker, older. He placed it on the desk. "That's the only one we have," he said. Lucas picked it up, heavier than the first. Koda's ears twitched again. Reeves exhaled quietly. "Be careful out there," he added. "That area, it doesn't get much traffic." Lucas nodded once. As he turned toward the door, Koda was already moving. Neither of them looked back. Outside, the air felt different again. Less controlled. More honest. Lucas paused beside the truck, keys in hand, staring out at the road ahead. Wyoming. A boarded-up cottage. A man he thought he understood. And a dog that wouldn't stop reacting like something was waiting. Lucas opened the door. Koda jumped in. The engine turned over. And this time, Lucas didn't hesitate. The truck rolled out of the parking lot without a second glance in the rearview mirror. He didn't need one. The road stretched ahead, long and unbroken, cutting through dry land that looked like it had been forgotten on purpose. Lucas drove with both hands steady on the wheel, posture straight, eyes moving. Not just forward, but everywhere. Side mirrors, road edges, movement in the distance. Nothing stayed in one place for long. Koda sat upright in the passenger seat, nose angled slightly toward the open window. The wind pushed through his fur, carrying scents Lucas couldn't read. The dog didn't relax, not once. They drove for hours. Gas stations grew farther apart. Towns turned into signs instead of places. Pavement gave way to rougher stretches, patches of gravel that cracked under the tires like distant static. Lucas didn't turn on the radio. He didn't need noise. Every so often something would shift inside him, small, sharp, a flicker in the corner of his vision, a sound that didn't belong. Once a passing semi downshifted too fast, and Lucas's grip tightened instantly, Shoulders locking, breath held. Rotor wash. Dust. Men shouting over comms. He blinked once, hard. The road came back. Koda turned his head and nudged Lucas's arm just enough to break the loop. Lucas exhaled through his teeth. "Yeah," he muttered. "I'm here." They crossed into Wyoming late in the afternoon. The land changed first. Flatter in some places, wilder in others. Long stretches of nothing broken by sudden rises of dark trees and jagged ridges. The sky felt bigger here, like it pressed down instead of opening up. Lucas pulled off at a small roadside stop just before dusk. Not a station, just a clearing with a rusted sign and a trash barrel half full of wind-blown debris. He killed the engine. Silence dropped in fast. Too fast. Lucas sat still for a moment, listening. No engines. No voices. Just wind moving through dry grass and the faint ticking of the truck cooling down. He stepped out. Koda followed instantly, and landing beside him with a soft thud. Lucas stretched his back slightly, then scanned the area out of habit. Tree line, horizon, ground. Nothing moved. Still, he didn't let it go. He walked the perimeter of the clearing, boots crunching lightly on gravel. Koda moved ahead this time, nose low, tracking something invisible. Halfway around, the dog stopped. Rigid. Lucas froze. Didn't ask. Didn't speak. He shifted his weight slightly, lowering his center of gravity, eyes narrowing as he followed Koda's line of sight. A line in the dirt. Fresh. Tire tracks that didn't match the main road. They cut off to the side, disappearing into a narrow stretch between trees. Lucas crouched, ran 2 fingers along the edge of the track. Still loose. Not old. He glanced back at the road behind them, then at the trees ahead, and Koda let out a low breath. Not quite a growl, but close. Lucas stood slowly. "We're not the only ones using this place," he said quietly. The wind shifted again, carrying a different scent this time. Faint, metallic. Lucas's jaw tightened. He didn't follow the tracks. Not yet. Instead, he circled back to the truck, movements controlled, unhurried. He opened the back compartment and pulled out a small pack. Inside, flashlight, knife, coil of paracord. Nothing flashy. Just enough. Koda stayed close. Lucas tossed him a quick glance. "Eyes up." The dog didn't blink. They got back in the truck. The engine turned over again, louder now in the fading light. Lucas eased back onto the road, but his speed dropped. Not cautious, calculated. The sky dimmed faster out here. And by the time he turned onto the final stretch marked on the map, the sun was already slipping behind the ridgeline. The road narrowed, then broke. What was left wasn't a road so much as a suggestion. Dirt. Ruts. Weeds pushing through the middle like the land was reclaiming it piece by piece. Lucas slowed to a crawl. Branches scraped along the sides of the truck, sharp and uneven. The sound made something in his chest tighten, like distant gunfire echoing too close. He adjusted his breathing. In. Out. Stay present. Koda stood now, paws braced against the dashboard, eyes locked forward. They moved like that for nearly 20 minutes. Then the trees opened, and Lucas saw it. The cottage. It sat back from the road, barely visible at first, just a shape among shadows. Then the details came into focus. Boarded windows, a sagging roofline, porch tilted at an angle that didn't look safe. No lights, no movement, nothing. Lucas stopped the truck, didn't turn off the engine, just sat there, watching. The silence pressed in again, thicker this time. Koda didn't move, didn't make a sound, but his body had gone tight, every muscle alert. Lucas's eyes traced the structure slowly. Door. Windows. Edges of the roof ground around it. Something felt off. Not broken. Not abandoned. Held. Like the place had been waiting. Lucas reached forward and killed the engine. The sudden quiet hit harder this time. He opened the door slowly, stepped out. Koda followed, staying close to his side. Lucas didn't walk straight to the house. He turned left first, started a slow circle around the perimeter. Each step measured, each glance deliberate, and he checked the ground near the porch. No fresh prints, but the dirt looked disturbed in places. Subtle shifts, like something had been dragged, then covered again. He moved to the back. The tree line pressed closer here, shadows deeper, darker. Koda paused again. This time he let out a low growl. Lucas stopped instantly. His hand dropped slightly, fingers brushing the handle of the knife clipped to his belt. He didn't draw it, not yet. Instead, he listened. Nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. Lucas exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "I feel it too." They finished the circle. Back to the front. The cottage loomed larger now, closer, still silent. Lucas stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under his weight, loud in the stillness. He paused, waited. Nothing answered, and he reached into his pocket, pulled out the key. The brass caught the last light of the day. Koda stood just behind him, eyes fixed on the door. Lucas brought the key up, held it there for a second. Then he stopped, his head tilted slightly, listening. Somewhere inside the house, something shifted. Not loud, not clear, but enough. Lucas's grip tightened. Koda's growl deepened. And for the first time since he'd left Idaho, Lucas didn't feel like he was walking into the past. He felt like something inside was already watching them, waiting. Lucas didn't move. The key hovered inches from the lock, unmoving, his hand steady but suspended. Every instinct he had sharpened over years in places no one wanted to remember pressed against his ribs, quiet but insistent. "Don't rush it." He stepped back from the door. "Now just one step." Koda didn't break his stare, but his ears shifted slightly, tracking something Lucas couldn't hear. "Not blind," Lucas muttered under his breath. He turned away from the door and stepped off the porch. Gravel crunched beneath his boots as he moved back into the open, widening the distance. The house didn't change, didn't react. Just sat there, heavy and silent. Lucas circled again. Slower this time, closer. He crouched near the base of the front steps, running his hand along the edge of the wood. Splinters, rot, but not untouched. There were marks, faint, almost erased, but there. Pressure dense. Movement. Recent enough. His eyes narrowed. Koda moved ahead, nose low, tracing a path Lucas hadn't seen yet. The dog's body stayed tight, deliberate. Not curiosity. Tracking. Lucas followed. On around the side of the house, the ground shifted slightly underfoot. Softer, less compact. He paused, scanning the area. The brush here was thicker, tangled, harder to move through without leaving a trace. Someone had. Broken stems, crushed leaves. Not fresh, but not old either. Lucas didn't touch it, just memorized it. Koda stopped near the back corner of the cabin. This time, the growl came clearer. Lucas's hand dropped again, instinct pulling him lower. Weight balanced, eyes sweeping the tree line behind them. Nothing moved, but the feeling didn't ease. Copy, Lucas whispered, more to himself than the dog. He moved closer to the rear wall of the house. A window, boarded up like the rest. But this one, the nails didn't sit right. One corner lifted slightly, not enough to notice at a distance, but enough if you were looking for it. Lucas leaned in. The wood smelled damp, old. But beneath that, faint, something else. Air movement. Inside. He stepped back. Not the front door. Not yet. Koda shifted beside him, eyes flicking between Lucas and the loose board. Lucas gave a small nod. Yeah, I see it. He reached for the edge of the plank and tested it gently. It moved. Not freely, but it moved. Lucas adjusted his grip, planting his feet. He pulled, slow at first, then with controlled force. The wood resisted, then gave. The nails tore free with a long, dragging sound that cut through the silence like a blade. Lucas froze, listened. Nothing came back. No footsteps, no voices, just the wind again. He set the board aside carefully, lowering it instead of dropping it. Inside, darkness. Thick, the kind that swallowed light instead of reflecting it. Lucas reached into his pack and pulled out the flashlight. He didn't turn it on yet. Instead, he waited, letting his eyes adjust, scanning for any shift, any flicker of movement. Koda stood pressed against his leg now, not in fear, in readiness. Lucas flicked the light on. A narrow beam cut into the room. Dust, old cabinets, a table, everything coated in a gray film that had settled over time. Nothing moved. Still, Lucas didn't climb in. He angled the light, sweeping left to right, floor, corners, ceiling. Then he saw it. The dust on the floor wasn't even. There was a line, faint, but there, like something had been dragged across it. Recently. Lucas's grip tightened on the flashlight. He leaned in slightly, adjusting the angle. The line led deeper into the room, toward the hallway. Koda let out a short, low sound. Lucas glanced down at him. The dog wasn't looking at the line. He was looking past it, into the dark. Lucas's chest tightened just a fraction. All right, he said quietly. He pulled himself up and through the window, landing inside with a soft, controlled drop. The floor creaked under his weight, but not enough to echo. Koda followed immediately, slipping through the opening with practiced ease. Inside, the air felt heavier, thicker. Lucas stood still, letting the space settle around him. Every sound mattered here. The house didn't feel empty. It felt held. He moved forward slowly, light steady, steps placed carefully to avoid the louder boards. The kitchen opened up around him, small, cramped, untouched for years, but not untouched enough. The dragged line cut straight through it. Lucas followed. Koda moved ahead now, silent, his nose inches from the ground. The hallway narrowed. Dark. The beam of the flashlight barely reached the end. Halfway down, Lucas stopped. Something shifted again. Soft. Ahead. He cut the light instantly. Darkness swallowed everything. Lucas stood there, unmoving, breathing slow, controlled. Koda didn't make a sound. Seconds stretched. Nothing. Lucas brought the light back on. The hallway was empty, but the air felt different now, like whatever had moved knew they were here. Lucas reached the end of the hall, a doorway, bedroom. The beam slid across the floor, stopped. The dust was disturbed again, more clearly here. And in the center of the room, a section of the floor sat slightly higher than the rest, barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it. Koda stepped forward, paused, then began to scratch. Slow at first, then harder. Lucas watched, didn't stop him, didn't speak. The sound of claws against wood filled the room, sharp and uneven. Lucas stepped closer, crouching beside the dog. He ran his hand along the edge of the board. It wasn't nailed down, just set. Waiting. Lucas slid his fingers into the seam and lifted. The board came free. Beneath it, darkness. And something metal. Lucas reached in. His fingers closed around cold steel. He pulled it up into the light. An old ammunition box. Worn. Scratched. Heavy. Koda stopped scratching. Sat back. Watching. Lucas stared at the box in his hands. All the house had gone completely still, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. Lucas set the box down slowly on the floor. His hand moved to the latch. Paused. Just for a second. Then, he opened it. The latch gave with a dull metallic click that sounded too loud in the small room. Lucas didn't rush. He lifted the lid slowly, keeping his body angled, not directly over it. Old habit. You don't assume what's inside anything. Koda stayed still, eyes locked on the box, muscles tight but controlled. Inside, paper. Stacks of it, neatly bundled. Lucas didn't touch them right away. The beam of his flashlight moved across the contents, scanning. No wires, no traps, no movement, just letters, dozens of them, all tied in small groups with faded twine, yellowed with age but kept in careful order. On top of the first bundle sat a single envelope, separate from the rest. Lucas reached in. His fingers brushed the paper, rough and dry. He lifted the loose envelope first. It was addressed. Not to an office, not to anyone else, to him, Lucas Grant. The handwriting was steady, clean, not rushed. His jaw tightened. For a second, he didn't open it. Koda shifted closer, pressing lightly against his side. Lucas exhaled once, then tore the envelope open. The paper inside unfolded with a soft crackle. He read. My son. Lucas stopped. The word sat there longer than it should have. He swallowed once, then kept going. I don't know if you'll ever find this. I don't know if you'll ever come here, but if you do, it means I ran out of time. Lucas's grip on the page tightened, knuckles whitening just slightly, but the room around him faded. Not completely, but enough. The voice in the letter wasn't the man he remembered. Not the one who left. Not the one who stopped calling. This voice was measured, deliberate, careful with every word. I need you to understand something before anything else. I didn't leave you because I wanted to. I left because I didn't have a choice. Lucas let out a quiet breath through his nose. His eyes flicked up briefly, instinct, checking the doorway, the hallway behind him. Clear. He looked back down. They were watching us before you ever noticed. I didn't realize how deep it went until it was already too late. By then, the only way to keep you out of it was to push you away completely. Lucas's thumb pressed harder into the edge of the paper. A flicker. A memory. A man standing in a doorway. And a bag already packed. No explanation. Just gone. Lucas blinked once, forcing the image back down. The letter continued. You'll hate me for that. You should. But you'll be alive. Lucas's jaw flexed. The flashlight beam shifted slightly as his hand adjusted. Koda leaned into him again, steady, grounding. Lucas kept reading. I couldn't fight them head on. Not then. So I did the only thing I could. I made myself small. I disappeared. And I made sure you did too. A faint sound echoed somewhere in the house. Lucas froze instantly. Light off. Darkness swallowed the room again. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Koda's body went rigid beside him, ears forward, listening. Seconds passed. Nothing followed. Lucas counted them anyway. 5, 10, 15. No movement. He brought the light back on, slower this time. But the room looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. Lucas shifted his position slightly, angling himself so he could see both the doorway and the window behind him. Then he went back to the letter. If you're reading this, it means you came back. And if you came back, it means they might still be looking. Lucas's eyes stopped there. The words didn't need explanation. They landed exactly where they were meant to. Koda let out a low breath. Lucas's hand tightened again. I didn't leave you with nothing, the letter continued. I left you with distance. It was the only thing that kept you alive. Lucas stared at that line longer than the others. Distance. That's what it had been. Not abandonment. A gap. Forced. Constructed. He didn't know what to do with that yet, so he kept reading. There's more here. Not just letters. I kept records, names, places, patterns. I couldn't stop them, but I could watch. And I did. Lucas's eyes sharpened slightly. That part he understood. Watch. Record. Wait. I hid what I could. I moved what I couldn't. And I left the rest where only you would think to look. Lucas's gaze flicked down to the open ammunition box, then back to the page. They'll tell you the land isn't worth anything, that it's easier to sell, easier to walk away. They'll make it sound simple. Lucas's jaw set. Read hollow. The offer. The pen sliding across the desk. They're lying. The word hung there. Simple. Direct. Final. Lucas felt something shift in his chest. Not sharp, not explosive, but steady, like something locking into place. They never stopped. They just got better at hiding it. The wind outside picked up again, brushing against the walls, slipping through cracks in the wood. Lucas didn't look up this time. He stayed with the page. I don't expect you to fix this. I don't expect you to stay. But if you do, don't trust what they offer you. Don't trust what looks easy. Lucas folded the letter halfway, paused, then opened it again. The last line sat alone at the bottom. If you came this far, then I know you'll see what I couldn't say. Lucas lowered the paper slowly. The room felt smaller now, not because of the walls, but because of what was inside it. He reached into the box again, pulled out one of the bundles, untied it. More letters. Dates. Years. A timeline. Koda shifted suddenly. His head snapped toward the hallway. Lucas reacted instantly. Light off. Body turned, hand already on the knife. This time, there was no mistaking it. A sound. Soft, but real. A floorboard somewhere beyond the doorway. Creaked. Lucas's breath slowed, measured, controlled. Koda stepped forward, placing himself between Lucas and the door, not backing down. Lucas didn't call him back, didn't move him. They held position. Seconds stretched again. The house listened. Then, nothing. No follow-up. No second step. Just silence. Lucas waited longer this time. Long enough for his legs to start to stiffen. Long enough to confirm whatever made that sound wasn't moving now. He exhaled quietly, brought the light back up. The hallway was empty, but the feeling, that hadn't changed. Lucas glanced down at the open box, then at the letter still in his hand, then back toward the dark hallway. They're lying. The words echoed differently now, not just warning, Not just memory, a direction. Lucas reached down and closed the lid of the ammunition box. Not fully. Just enough. He picked it up. Koda didn't take his eyes off the hallway. Neither did Lucas. For the first time since stepping inside. Lucas wasn't just reacting anymore. He was thinking ahead, planning, and whatever had made that sound wasn't just part of the past. It was still here. Somewhere. Watching back. Lucas didn't chase it. That was the first rule he never forgot. You don't rush the unknown. He shifted his stance slightly, lowering his center, letting the silence settle instead of fighting it. The beam of the flashlight stayed steady now, not sweeping, just holding the hallway in place. But Koda didn't move. The dog stood rigid, shoulders square, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. No barking, no panic, just presence. Lucas listened. The house didn't speak again. No second step, no shifting weight, no breath. Just that same heavy stillness. Lucas let the seconds stretch, counting them in his head out of habit. 15, 20, 30. Nothing. All right, he murmured under his breath. Not safe. Just not active. He stepped back into the bedroom, setting the ammunition box down on the floor beside him. The lid stayed half open, the letters still inside, waiting. Lucas didn't touch them again yet. Instead, he moved to the doorway, angling himself just enough to check the hallway without exposing too much. His eyes tracked every line, the edges of the walls, the floorboards, the shadows pooling near the far end. Still nothing. Koda shifted forward, one careful step at a time. Lucas didn't stop him. The dog moved into the hallway first. Silent. Lucas followed. Each step was placed deliberately, weight rolling through his boots instead of dropping. The boards creaked under him, but softly, controlled. The hallway felt longer now, narrower. The kind of space that forced you forward whether you wanted to or not. At the end, it opened into the kitchen again. Empty. The same dust. The same still air. But Lucas didn't trust it. He moved through the room slowly, retracing his steps, scanning everything again from a new angle. Something had made that sound. Something had been here. The question wasn't if. It was when. Lucas stopped near the center of the kitchen. Koda circled once, then stopped near the back door. The dog's nose hovered near the bottom edge, drawing in slow, deliberate breaths. Lucas watched him. "Pick it up," he said quietly. Koda's tail stiffened slightly. He turned his head just enough to look back at Lucas, then back at the door. Lucas stepped closer. The door itself was old, wood swollen from years of weather, the frame slightly warped. But near the bottom, there it was. A faint mark. Not visible unless you were looking for it. The dust had been disturbed. Recently. Lucas crouched, ran his fingers lightly across the edge, fresh enough to leave a clean line. Not hours old, not days old either. Somewhere in between. Koda let out a low, controlled breath. Lucas stood slowly. His eyes moved to the window, then to the hallway, then back to the door. "Someone's been here," he said. Not a question. Koda didn't react. He didn't need to. Lucas turned back toward the bedroom. The box. The letters. That was the center. Whatever this was, it tied back to that. He stepped into the bedroom again, the air inside feeling thicker than before, like the walls were holding on to something they weren't ready to let go of. Lucas crouched beside the ammunition box. This time, he didn't hesitate. He pulled out one of the bundles and untied it. The papers inside were dated. carefully, each one marked in a steady hand. Lucas flipped through them, scanning quickly. Names, numbers, short entries, not letters, records. He slowed, read one, then another. Addresses, dates, amounts. Not random, structured. His eyes sharpened slightly. This wasn't a man writing memories. This was someone documenting, tracking. Lucas flipped to another page, a name circled, underlined twice. Below it, a single word. Paid. Lucas's jaw tightened. He turned another page. Same format. Different name. Different date. Same result. Paid. Koda shifted suddenly. Lucas froze. The dog's head snapped toward the window this time. A shadow passed. Quick. Gone. Lucas moved instantly. Light off. Body low. Position changed. He stepped to the side of the window, pressing himself against the wall, knife already in hand. Koda didn't bark. He stood still, every muscle locked forward. Lucas waited, listening. Outside. Nothing. No footsteps. No engine. No voices. Just the wind again. Lucas didn't trust it. He stayed there longer this time, breathing slow, counting each second. When nothing followed, he moved. Fast. He crossed to the window and angled the flashlight just enough to cut across the outside ground without exposing himself. The beam slid across dirt. Grass. Nothing moving. But there, near the tree line, a disturbance. Subtle. But there. Lucas narrowed his eyes. Not animals. Too straight. Too deliberate. Koda let out a low growl. Lucas lowered the light, turned it off again. "They're still here," he whispered. The words didn't feel like a guess. They felt like confirmation. Lucas stepped back from the window and returned to the box. This time his movements were faster, more focused. He dug deeper into the contents. More records. More names. Then, something different. A smaller envelope. Thicker. Sealed. Lucas picked it up. Weighed it in his hand. Koda didn't take his eyes off the window. Lucas turned the envelope over. No name. No writing. Just sealed. He opened it. Inside. Photographs. Lucas pulled the first one out. Black and white. Grainy. A group of men standing near a construction site. Nothing unusual. Until you looked closer. One of the men, facing slightly away, but not enough. Lucas's eyes locked onto the face. Familiar. Not from memory. From somewhere else. He flipped to the next photo. Same man. Different angle. Different location. Always near land. Always near people who didn't look comfortable. Lucas's grip tightened. Red Hollow. The name from the office. The offer. Lucas flipped to the last photo. This one clearer. Closer. The man was looking directly at the camera. Lucas stared. The face settled into place. Not a stranger. A connection. He didn't know how yet. But it was there. Koda barked. Sharp. One time. Lucas snapped his head toward the window. This time, no shadow. No movement. Just the dark pressing in closer than before. Lucas slid the photos back into the envelope. Closed it. Then looked down at the box. At the letters. At the records. At everything his father had left behind. Not junk, not nothing. Something built. Something hidden. Something worth protecting. Lucas stood. The room felt different now. Not just watched. occupied. Not by a person, by a purpose. Koda stepped back beside him. Close. Ready. Lucas looked toward the door, then back at the box. "They're not here for the house," he said quietly. His voice didn't shake. "Not this time. They're here for this." Outside, the wind shifted again, carrying something with it. Not sound, and not movement, just the feeling that whatever had been watching was still out there. And now it knew he had found it. Lucas didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The room held that truth on its own. Koda stayed pressed close to his leg, eyes still fixed on the dark outside the window. The dog's breathing was slow, controlled, but his body remained tight, ready to react. Lucas crouched again beside the box, not rushed, not panicked, focused. He pulled the letters back into order, stacking them carefully. The photographs went into his jacket pocket. The sealed envelope stayed in his hand for a moment longer before he tucked it away as well. Nothing stayed exposed. Nothing stayed loose. That was another rule. He closed the lid of the ammunition box fully this time. The click of metal against metal sounded final. As Lucas stood, the house felt different now, not just watched, but aware, like it had shifted from silence into something else. Expectation. Koda moved first, not toward the door, toward Lucas. The dog leaned into him just for a second, pressing his weight against Lucas's thigh. Lucas rested a hand briefly on Koda's head, grounding. Then he moved. They didn't leave the house. Not yet. Lucas stepped back into the hallway, sweeping the light once more. Every corner, every shadow, every inch. Still empty, but not clear. He moved into the kitchen again, stopping near the table. Dust still coated everything, untouched except for the narrow path cut through it. Lucas followed that path with his eyes. It didn't stop at the bedroom. It led to the front door. And out. His jaw tightened slightly. "Oh, they've been inside," he said quietly. Not guessing, confirming. Koda let out a low breath. Lucas crossed to the door, tested it, locked, from the inside. His eyes flicked back toward the window he'd entered through, then to the disturbed dust on the floor. Not just entry, exit. Lucas stepped back. The layout of the house settled into place in his mind now, not as a home but as terrain, angles, lines, choke points. If someone had been here recently, they knew the same layout. That meant they knew where to move, where to wait, where to listen. Lucas exhaled slowly. He didn't like that. Not one bit. He turned back toward the bedroom. The box, the letters, the records, all of it pointed somewhere. But not all of it had been read. Lucas knelt again, opening the box once more. This time he reached deeper, on past the first bundles, past the records, to the bottom. There. Another envelope. Thicker, heavier, older. Lucas pulled it out. Koda shifted again, glancing toward the hallway, then back to Lucas. The dog didn't interrupt, but he didn't relax either. Lucas turned the envelope over. This one had a name. Not his, not a company, just a single word. Lucas. Different handwriting. Same hand, but this was written later. Lucas opened it. Inside, a single folded sheet. He unfolded it carefully. The paper was thinner, more worn. He read, "If you're reading this one, then you stayed long enough to find what matters. Lucas's eyes narrowed slightly. Stayed. The word lingered. I never thought you would. It's not because you couldn't, but because I made sure you wouldn't want to. Lucas's grip tightened slightly on the page. A flicker. Another memory. A door closing. No explanation. No goodbye. Lucas pushed it down. Kept reading. I needed you to hate me. That was the only way I knew you'd keep your distance. And distance was the only thing keeping you alive. Lucas's jaw set. The words didn't feel like an excuse. They felt like a decision. Calculated. Cold. And maybe necessary. You were never part of this. I made sure of that. But I stayed in it longer than I should have. Long enough to see how it worked. Lucas's eyes flicked briefly toward the records in the box, then back to the letter. They don't just take land. They take people with it. Quietly. One at a time. They make it look like choices. Sales. Agreements. But it's pressure. It's fear. And it's everywhere. Lucas's breathing slowed. His focus sharpened. This wasn't just a story. This was structure. Operation. They'll come at you the same way if they know you're here. Friendly first, then persistent, then something else. Lucas's thumb pressed harder against the edge of the paper. The phone call. The offer. The clean, simple numbers. He kept reading. I couldn't stop them, not alone, but I watched. I listened. And I wrote everything down. Lucas's eyes dropped again to the box. The records, the names, the photographs. I didn't leave you a house, Lucas. I left you the truth. And the truth is heavier than anything you'll carry. Lucas stared at that line, longer than the others. Koda shifted again, pressing closer. Lucas didn't look away from the page. Well, if you're still here after reading this, then you already know what that means. Lucas exhaled slowly. The room felt tighter now, not because of fear, because of clarity. The last line sat alone at the bottom. They didn't take everything from us. Don't let them finish the job. Lucas lowered the paper. His hand didn't shake. Not anymore. He folded the letter once, carefully, then placed it back into the envelope. Koda's ears twitched. Lucas looked up. The house was still, but something had changed. Not outside. Inside. Lucas stood slowly. The pieces were fitting now. Not perfectly, but enough. His father hadn't disappeared. He hadn't run. He had stayed. Watched. Documented. Waited. Lucas glanced down at the box, then toward the door, then to the window. They're not done, he said quietly. Koda didn't move, but his eyes stayed locked forward. Lucas stepped toward the front of the house, not to leave, to check. He opened the door this time, slowly. The hinges creaked. Outside. Nothing moved, but the air felt different, heavier. Lucas stepped onto the porch. Koda followed instantly, positioning himself just ahead, scanning the tree line. Lucas's eyes tracked the edges of the clearing, the path they'd driven in, the line of trees, and there, just at the edge of the road, something new. Tracks. Fresh. Not from his truck. Lucas's gaze hardened. Someone had come. After him. After he'd already arrived. He stepped down off the porch, boots hitting dirt with a muted thud. Koda moved with him, low and ready. Lucas crouched beside the tracks, ran his fingers lightly across the edge. Still loose. Oh, still fresh. His head tilted slightly, listening. Nothing. But the message was clear. They knew. They were close. Lucas stood again. This time he didn't look back at the house right away. He looked out, into the trees, into the space where something or someone was still watching. Then, slowly, he turned back toward the cabin, toward the box, toward everything his father had left behind. This wasn't about selling anymore. This wasn't about leaving. This was something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not fear, not anger. Something steadier. He reached down and rested a hand briefly on Koda's back. The dog didn't move, didn't look away. "Yeah," Lucas said under his breath. Then he stepped back inside, and this time, he didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like he had just taken a position. But Lucas closed the door behind him without a sound. The latch settled into place with a soft click, and for a moment, everything inside the cabin went still again. Not empty, not quiet in the way an abandoned place should be. Held. He stood there just inside the entry, letting his eyes adjust again to the dim light. The beam of the flashlight stayed low, angled across the floor instead of the walls. "You don't advertise your position." Koda moved past him, slow and deliberate, circling once through the kitchen before returning to Lucas's side. The dog didn't lie down, didn't relax, he was working. Lucas shifted his weight slightly and looked around the room again, but this time not like someone searching, like someone defending. The table, the hallway, the broken line in the dust, the window he'd come through. Well, everything had a place now. Everything had a purpose. Lucas set the ammunition box down on the table, then moved to the back door. He didn't open it, just checked the frame, the hinges, the lock. One hand pressed lightly against the wood, feeling for vibration. Nothing. He stepped away. Koda's head tilted slightly, tracking something Lucas hadn't heard yet. Lucas stilled, listened. At first, nothing. Then, a faint shift. Not inside. Outside. Lucas moved without thinking. 2 steps to the side of the window, body angled, light off. Koda slid into position beside him, low, silent. Lucas counted his breathing. In, out, slow. The sound came again. A branch brushing against something, or something brushing against a branch. Lucas didn't chase it. He waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Nothing followed. The tension didn't break. It just settled deeper. Lucas exhaled slowly and stepped back from the wall. He didn't turn the light on right away. Instead, he let the dark sit. Let it press in. Let it become familiar. Only then did he move again. Back to the table. Back to the box. Lucas opened it once more. The letters sat where he'd left them. The bundles, the records, the envelope with his name. He didn't go for those this time. He reached deeper. Past everything he'd already seen, his fingers brushed something rough. Wood, a smaller box. Lucas pulled it out. It was simple. No markings. No lock. Koda moved closer, nose hovering near it, then pulling back slightly as if the scent wasn't something he liked. Lucas noticed that. He always did. He set the wooden box down and opened it. Inside, a cassette tape, old, but label faded, handwritten numbers across the side. Lucas stared at it. For a second, the room shifted again. A flicker. Sound in his head that wasn't here. Static. Voices. Radio chatter cutting in and out. He blinked hard once, grounding himself. The tape stayed in his hand. Real. Lucas glanced around the room. No player. No power. Nothing that could bring the voice back to life here. He set the tape aside carefully. then looked back into the wooden box. Nothing else, just that. Koda let out a low breath. Lucas nodded slightly. Yeah, he murmured. Later. He closed the wooden box and placed it beside the larger one. Then he sat. For the first time since entering the cabin. The chair creaked under his weight, the sound sharp in the stillness. Lucas didn't react, didn't shift, just sat there, had elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the space in front of him. The silence stretched. Minutes, maybe longer. Time didn't move the same way in places like this. Koda lay down finally, but not fully. His body stayed angled toward the door, head up, ears still tracking. Lucas didn't look at him. Didn't need to. They were both doing the same thing, holding, waiting. Lucas's eyes drifted back to the letters, then to the tape, then to the window. His mind didn't race. It didn't spin. It lined things up, piece by piece. His father hadn't been hiding from nothing. He'd been watching something, documenting it, tracking it. And whatever that something was, it wasn't gone. Lucas leaned back slightly in the chair. The wood groaned under him again. This time, he didn't ignore it. He listened. But the sound echoed differently. Not just the chair, the floor, the structure, the space beneath. Lucas's head tilted just a fraction. Koda's ears twitched. They both felt it. Lucas stood slowly, walked to the center of the room, then back toward the hallway. Each step measured. He stopped halfway, looked down. The floorboards. Most of them were uneven, warped by time and weather. But one section, near the edge of the living space, sat flatter than the rest. Cleaner, subtle, but wrong. Lucas crouched, ran his fingers along the edge. The wood felt different, less worn, less aged. Koda stood beside him, nose hovering near the seam. Then, a soft whine. Not loud, not panicked, but there. Lucas pressed down lightly. The board didn't shift, but it wasn't fixed either. He slid his fingers into the gap, tested it. It gave, just a fraction. Lucas pulled his hand back. Not yet. Not until he was sure. He stood again, turned his head toward the window, toward the dark outside, then back to the floor. Whatever his father had left, this wasn't the end of it. This was another layer, another place, another piece. Lucas exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that settled into the bones. He moved back to the table, picked up the flashlight, checked the beam, then looked at Koda. The dog met his eyes, didn't blink, didn't move. Lucas gave a small nod. Stay sharp. Koda stood immediately, ready. Lucas stepped back to the section of the floor, crouched. And this time, he didn't hesitate. He drove his fingers into the seam and pulled. The board resisted. Then, with a low, splintering sound, it shifted. Just enough. As Lucas adjusted his grip, pulled harder. The wood came loose. The sound echoed through the cabin, sharper than anything before. Lucas froze, listened. Nothing answered. But the silence felt tighter now, closer. Lucas looked down into the space beneath the floor. Dark, deep. And something inside caught the edge of the light. Not paper, not wood. Something else. Koda stepped closer, lowered his head, growled. Soft, controlled. Lucas leaned in slightly. The beam of the flashlight cut deeper into the gap, and whatever was hidden beneath the floor wasn't just something his father had left behind. It was something he had tried to hide. From them. Lucas didn't reach in right away. He held the position, crouched over the opening, letting the beam of the flashlight settle into the darkness below. But dust drifted in the light, slow and weightless, but whatever lay beneath it didn't move. Koda's growl stayed low, steady. Not fear. Recognition. Lucas shifted his angle slightly, widening the light. The shape became clearer. A box. Smaller than the ammunition case. Wood. Edges reinforced with metal. Placed, not dropped. Hidden with intention. Lucas exhaled slowly. "All right," he murmured. He slid his hand into the gap. The space was tighter than it looked. His knuckles brushed against the joists as he reached deeper, fingers finding the edge of the box. Cold. He gripped it and pulled. The box resisted at first, caught on something beneath, then gave with a soft scrape. Lucas lifted it out carefully and set it on the floor beside him. Koda stepped closer immediately, nose hovering near the lid, then pulling back again, an ears flattening just slightly. Lucas noticed that, whatever this was, it didn't sit right with the dog. He turned the box once. No markings. No lock. Just weight. Lucas opened it. Inside, paper. But not like before. Not letters. Not loose pages. Organized. Bound. A ledger. Lucas lifted it out. The cover was worn, edges frayed, but the pages inside were intact. Handwritten entries filled every line. Names, dates, amounts, properties. Each entry precise, each one consistent. Lucas flipped through them slowly. The pattern didn't take long to see. Same structure, different people, different land, same outcome. Sold, transferred, gone. Lucas's jaw tightened. He turned another page and stopped. One name, circled, underlined, not paid, not transferred, still open. Lucas stared at it. The last entry. Recent. Too recent. Koda's head snapped toward the front of the house. Lucas froze. Listened. A sound. Not inside. Outside. Closer this time. Lucas closed the ledger immediately and set it down. Light off. Dark again. He moved fast, silent, crossing to the wall beside the window. His body pressed flat, minimizing profile. One hand rested on the knife, the other steady against the wood. Koda moved ahead, positioning himself between Lucas and the door. The dog didn't bark, didn't make a sound, but his entire body locked forward. Lucas slowed his breathing. In, out, measured. The sound came again. Footsteps, soft, careful, not walking, placing. Lucas's eyes shifted slightly toward the door, then back to the window. Whoever was outside knew how to move. That wasn't random. That wasn't someone lost. Oh, that was someone looking. Lucas stayed still, didn't react, didn't engage. Seconds passed. Then, a shadow crossed the edge of the window. Quick. Gone. Koda's growl deepened. Lucas didn't move. He let it pass. The footsteps circled, around the house, testing. Lucas tracked them in his head, front, side, back, pausing near the same places he had checked earlier, mirroring him. Lucas's grip tightened. "They know the layout," he whispered, barely audible. Koda didn't break position. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the back door. Lucas's focus narrowed. Every muscle in his body went still. The handle didn't move. No knock, no voice, just presence. Heavy, waiting. Lucas counted. 5, 10, 15. Then, the footsteps moved again. Away. Not running. Not rushed. Controlled. Not like whoever it was had seen enough. Lucas didn't follow. Didn't rush to the door. He waited. Longer this time, until the sound of movement faded completely. Only then did he move. Light on. Fast sweep. Door. Window. Corners. Empty. But the air felt disturbed. Lucas stepped to the door and opened it slowly. The outside had changed. The wind had picked up, pushing through the trees, carrying loose dirt across the ground. But beneath that, tracks. Fresh. Right up to the door. Lucas stepped out, scanning the tree line. Nothing visible, but the path. Clear. One set of prints. Heavy boots. Not his. He followed them with his eyes. They led back toward the trees, then disappeared. Lucas stood there a moment longer, then crouched, ran his fingers across the edge of the print. Still soft, still fresh. They're close, he said quietly. Koda stepped beside him, eyes fixed on the same direction. Lucas stood, turned back toward the cabin, toward the open door, toward the box on the floor, the ledger, the records, the letters. Everything his father had left behind. Not random, not forgotten. Collected. Protected. Lucas stepped back inside, closed the door behind him. This time, the click sounded different. Not just a latch, a line. He crossed back to the box, picked up the ledger again, opened it to the marked page. The name circled, the one that hadn't been resolved. Lucas stared at it, then flipped back. Page after page. Same pattern, same operation. Systematic. Organized. Not a small group. Not random. This was something larger. Structured. Lucas closed the book, slowly. Koda shifted again, but moving closer to Lucas's side. Not reacting now, just staying. Lucas looked down at the dog for a moment, then back at the ledger. They're not just buying land, he said. His voice was low, steady. They're clearing it. Koda didn't move, but his ears stayed forward. Lucas set the ledger down beside the letters, then reached for the photographs. He pulled one out, looked at the face again, then back at the ledger. The connection tightened. Not complete, but enough. Lucas exhaled. Long, controlled. The cabin wasn't just a place anymore. It was a point, a node, a piece of something larger. And now, he was standing right in the middle of it. Lucas looked toward the window. The darkness outside had deepened. The trees were just shapes now. But he knew they were still there, watching, waiting, not gone. Koda stepped closer, pressed against his leg. Lucas rested a hand on his back briefly, then let it fall. His eyes moved back to the ledger, then to the box, then to the door. They're not going to stop, he said. Not fear, not doubt, just fact. And for the first time since he'd arrived, Lucas didn't feel like he was trying to understand what was happening. He knew enough. This wasn't about what his father had left behind. It was about what he had stepped into. Lucas didn't sit again. He didn't go back to the chair. Didn't slow down. The cabin had shifted from a place to search into a place to hold. He moved through it differently now, not exploring, setting. He crossed to the window first, lowered the remaining board just enough to narrow the opening without sealing it completely. Light control, a visibility control. He left a thin line, enough to see out, not enough to be seen easily from outside. Koda tracked him the entire time, pacing once, then settling near the center of the room, watching both angles. Lucas moved to the back door next. He dragged the table across the floor, slow enough to control the sound, heavy enough to block a direct push. Not permanent, just enough to buy time. Every move had a reason. Every adjustment had a fallback. He checked the hallway again, cleared. Checked the bedroom, clear, but not safe. That difference mattered. Lucas returned to the main room and crouched beside the ammunition box. He didn't open it again. Not yet. Instead, he slid it closer to the wall, out of direct line of sight from the door and window. Not hidden, protected. Koda let out a low breath. While Lucas glanced at him. "You hear it too," he said quietly. Koda didn't respond, but he didn't need to. The light outside was fading fast now. Dusk in the mountains didn't linger. It dropped. The trees outside shifted from shapes into silhouettes, then into nothing at all. Lucas didn't turn on any lights. He let the dark take the room. Sat with it. Owned it. He moved into position near the corner of the room, where he could see both the door and the window without exposing himself directly. Koda settled just ahead of him, between Lucas and everything else. The first sound came just after full dark, not footsteps, not movement. Engine, far off, low. Lucas's head tilted slightly. Koda's ears snapped forward. The engine didn't approach directly. It slowed, then stopped, not on the main path, off to the side. Lucas didn't move, didn't react. He let the sound settle, counted. 5 seconds. 10. 15. No door slam. No voices. Just silence again. Then, a faint click, metal. Lucas's jaw tightened. Koda's body went rigid. The sound of a door opening. Not here. Somewhere out there. Lucas adjusted his position slightly, lowering his center of gravity. He didn't draw attention, didn't move toward the door. He waited. The footsteps came next. 2 sets. Separate. Not rushed, not loud, deliberate. Lucas tracked them. Front of the house. Pause. One set moved left, the other right, splitting. Lucas's eyes narrowed. "They're probing," he whispered. Koda didn't move, didn't break. The footsteps stopped again. Then, a faint scrape at the side of the house. Wood. Testing. Lucas's fingers curled slightly. Yet he didn't go to it, didn't respond. You don't give them your position. The scrape stopped. The footsteps moved again. Slower this time. Closer. One set approached the front. The other circled toward the back. Lucas shifted just enough to keep both in view. The front step creaked. Barely. But enough. Someone was on the porch. Koda's growl deepened. Low, controlled. Lucas didn't silence him. The sound was a warning. The door handle didn't move. Not yet. Instead, a shadow passed across the thin slit of the window. Lucas didn't follow it with the light. He stayed still. The back side. Another sound. A soft tap against the door. Not a knock. A test. Lucas's breathing stayed slow. Even. The front handle moved then, just slightly, testing the lock. It held. The shadow shifted again. A pause. Then, a voice. Low, muffled, too quiet to make out words. Lucas didn't need the words. The tone was enough. Koda took one step forward. Lucas reached out and rested his hand lightly against the dog's shoulder, not holding him back, just grounding him. The handle stopped moving. The shadow pulled away. Footsteps again. Both sets. Rejoining. Lucas tracked them as they circled once more. Slower now. More deliberate. They weren't rushing. They weren't breaking in. They were learning. Mapping. Just like he had. Lucas's jaw tightened. "They'll come back," he said quietly. Koda's ears stayed forward. The footsteps moved away, toward the tree line, toward the engine. A door opened, closed. The engine started again. Faded. Gone. Lucas didn't move. Not yet. He waited. Longer than necessary. Long enough to be sure. Well, the cabin settled again. The silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had weight. Lucas exhaled slowly. His hand lifted from Koda's shoulder. The dog didn't relax. Not fully. Not yet. Lucas stood, slow, controlled. He moved to the window, carefully. Shifted the board just enough to see. Nothing. No lights. No movement. Just darkness and trees. Lucas stepped back, turned toward the center of the room. The box, the ledger, the letters. Everything still where he had placed it, untouched. He crossed to it, picked up the ledger again, held it. The pages felt heavier now, not just paper. Proof. Koda moved beside him, close. Lucas glanced down briefly, then back at the door. "They didn't come to talk," he said. "Not fear, not anger, just clarity. They came to confirm." Koda's tail shifted once, low. Lucas set the ledger back down, then moved toward the door. Not to open it, to stand near it, to feel it, to listen. The wood was still, no vibration, no pressure, but the message stayed. They knew, they had seen enough, and now they would come back differently. Lucas stepped away, back into the room, back to position. He didn't sit, didn't relax, didn't let the silence fool him again. This wasn't over, not even close. The night pressed in around the cabin, thick and absolute, and inside. Lucas and Koda didn't sleep. They held the line, waiting for the next move, because now, it wasn't a question of if they would return, only when. Lucas stayed awake through the night, not pacing, not moving, holding. The hours didn't pass in the usual way. Oh, they stretched, folded, disappeared. Time became something measured in breaths, in sounds, in the absence of both. Koda never lay fully down. He shifted positions, slow and controlled, circling once every so often, checking angles Lucas couldn't see without moving. When he did settle, it was never for long. Head up, ears forward. On watch. Lucas matched him. At some point, he didn't know when, the dark began to thin. Not light, just less black. The trees outside shifted from nothing to outlines again. Dawn. Lucas exhaled once, slow. The first light always did that. Not relief, just a change. He stood. His joints protested slightly, but his movement stayed controlled. He crossed to the window and adjusted the board just enough to widen his view. The clearing came into focus. Empty. No vehicles. No movement. Oh, but the tracks. Still there. Pressed into the dirt like a statement that hadn't been erased. Lucas stepped back. Turned toward the room. The boxes. The ledger. Everything still intact. He crouched and opened the ammunition case again. This time his movements were different. Not searching, sorting. He separated the letters from the records, grouped the photographs, stacked the envelopes. Koda watched him, but his attention kept drifting toward the door. Lucas noticed that too. Almost done, he muttered. He reached for the ledger last, opened it again. The same names, the same pattern. He flipped to the final page. The one that hadn't been closed. The one still marked. Lucas stared at it, then reached into his pocket and pulled out one of the photographs. He held it beside the page. Compared. The face, the name, the connection locked. Lucas didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He closed the ledger, set it aside, then reached for the smaller wooden box, opened it. The cassette tape sat where he had left it. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand. Still no way to play it here, but it didn't matter. Not yet. Lucas stood. The decision had already been made. He just hadn't said it out loud. Koda moved closer. Lucas rested a hand briefly on his back. "Time to move," he said. Not leaving, not running. Moving forward. Lucas packed the essentials first. The ledger, the photographs, the letters that mattered, the tape. Everything else stayed. The box went back under the floor, but not the same way. Not hidden. Set. Deliberate. Lucas replaced the board loosely, not sealed, not permanent, just enough, while he stood again. Looked around the room. The cabin didn't feel abandoned anymore. It felt occupied. Not by them, by what had been left behind. Lucas turned toward the door, opened it. The morning air hit different, cooler, cleaner. But the tension didn't leave. It just stretched further out. Koda stepped out first, scanning. Lucas followed. He moved down the steps and into the clearing, boots pressing into the dirt beside the tracks. Fresh, still visible, still recent. Lucas crouched again, studying them one more time. 2 sets, one heavier, one lighter. Both deliberate. Both trained enough to avoid noise. Not amateurs. Lucas stood. His eyes moved to the tree line, then to the road, then back to the house. "They'll come back with more," he said quietly. Koda didn't move. Lucas nodded once, and then turned toward the truck. The engine started on the first try. The sound cut through the morning stillness. Lucas didn't rush. He loaded the bag into the passenger seat. Koda jumped in beside it. Lucas got behind the wheel. But he didn't drive off immediately. He sat there. Hands on the wheel, eyes forward. The cabin visible in the rearview mirror. Not broken. Not worthless. Not something to sell. Something to hold. Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up. He scrolled once. Found the number. Daniel Reeves. He hit call. It rang once. Twice. Then, "Mr. Grant?" Reeves's voice came through, sharp with surprise. "I wasn't expecting—" "I'm not selling," Lucas said. No hesitation. No explanation. Silence on the other end. Then, "Lucas, I strongly advise you to reconsider. That property, I've seen it." Another pause. Longer this time. "You don't understand what you're stepping into," Reeves said, his tone lower now. Lucas's eyes shifted briefly to the tree line. "I do." The word settled, heavy. Reeves exhaled slowly. Red Hollow doesn't like being turned down. Lucas's grip on the wheel didn't change. Noted. A faint shift in tone on the other end. Concern. Or respect. Maybe both. I'll handle the legal side, Reeves said finally. But Lucas, be careful. Lucas ended the call. No goodbye. He stared at the phone for a moment, then dialed another number. The one listed on the offer. Red Hollow Development. The line connected quickly. A different voice this time. Smooth. Polished. This is Red Hollow, how can I assist you? Lucas didn't soften his tone. My name is Lucas Grant. Own property in Park County. You made an offer. A brief pause. Yes, Mr. Grant. We were hoping to. I'm not selling. Silence, then. That's unfortunate, the voice replied, still calm, but thinner now. That property isn't in good condition. It's more trouble than it's worth. Lucas's eyes flicked to the cabin, then back to the road. I'll manage. Another pause. Longer. You should think about that, the voice said. Starting over somewhere else might be easier. Lucas didn't answer, didn't engage. He ended the call. The phone went dark in his hand. He set it aside. Koda shifted slightly in the seat beside him, eyes still on the trees. Lucas turned the key. The truck rolled forward. Not fast, not slow, steady. He drove down the dirt path, past the tracks, past the place where the trees pressed close. Didn't look back. Not yet. When the cabin disappeared from view, Lucas finally exhaled. Not relief, not release, just a reset. He reached down and rested his hand on Koda's neck. The dog leaned into it briefly, then returned to watching the road. Lucas's eyes stayed forward. The decision was done. The line had been drawn. He wasn't leaving. He wasn't selling. And whatever his father had been holding, whatever had brought those men out here, wasn't buried anymore. It was moving. And now so was he. The road back into town didn't feel the same. Lucas drove the same dirt path, the same narrow bends through the trees, but something had shifted. Not outside. Inside. His hands stayed steady on the wheel, but his eyes didn't move the same way anymore. They weren't searching for exits. They were measuring distance. Calculating return. Koda sat upright beside him, head slightly lowered, watching the edges of the road like he expected something to step out at any second. Neither of them relaxed. Not once. The truck rolled into the small town just after noon. It wasn't much. One gas station, a general store, a few scattered houses, but it felt louder than the mountains. Not noise. Presence. People. Lucas parked near the general store. He didn't get out right away. He watched. A man stepped out of the store carrying a bag. A truck passed through without slowing. A woman watered plants on a porch across the road. Normal. But normal didn't mean safe. Lucas stepped out. Koda followed. They crossed the gravel lot without drawing attention, moving at the same pace as everyone else. But Lucas's eyes never stopped working. Inside, the air smelled like old wood and coffee. An older man stood behind the counter, reading a folded newspaper. He looked up as Lucas entered, eyes narrowing slightly, then shifting to Koda. That dog yours? He asked. Lucas nodded once. The man studied him for a moment longer. You're up at the Grant place, Boom, he said. Not a question. Lucas didn't answer right away. Then, yeah. The man folded the newspaper slowly. Didn't think anyone would come back for that place. Lucas set a small stack of cash on the counter. Need to wire something, he said. The man glanced at the money, then back at Lucas. Taxes? Lucas didn't answer. The man gave a small nod anyway. Figures, He moved to the back without another word. Koda stayed close, his body angled slightly toward the door. Lucas stood still, waited, listened. Yet the small sounds of the place settled around him. Floorboards shifting, the hum of an old cooler, the faint scrape of paper behind the counter. Nothing out of place. But Lucas didn't drop his guard. Not even here. The man returned a few minutes later with a receipt. Lucas took it, folded it once, tucked it into his pocket. "Place hasn't had power in years," the man said, almost casually. "But folks still come by now and then." Lucas's eyes lifted slightly. "Yeah?" The man shrugged. "Land's valuable. Always is." Lucas held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once. "Appreciate it." He turned and left. The sunlight outside felt harsher now, brighter. Lucas didn't linger. He moved straight back to the truck, Koda already ahead of him, scanning. The engine turned. The road out of town stretched ahead again. But Lucas didn't go back to Idaho. He turned the wheel, back toward the mountains, back toward the cabin. The climb felt different this time, not unfamiliar. Owned. Lucas drove slower, more deliberate. Every turn memorized, every rise anticipated. The truck moved like it belonged there now. Koda stayed alert the entire way. When the trees closed in again, the air shifted. Cooler, heavier. The place hadn't changed, but Lucas had. He pulled into the clearing and stopped. The cabin stood exactly as he'd left it. Still, silent, waiting. Lucas didn't get out immediately. He watched, checked the edges, the ground, the shadows. Nothing moved. Koda let out a low breath. Lucas opened the door, stepped out. The dirt crunched under his boots, familiar now. Not foreign, not hostile, just ground. But he moved up to the cabin slowly, scanning as he went. The tracks from earlier were still there, but no new ones, no fresh disturbances, no signs of return. Lucas stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under him again. Same sound. Same place. But it didn't echo the same way anymore. He opened the door. Inside, unchanged. The boxes where he left them. The boards still shifted in place. The silence still heavy. Lucas stepped in. Koda followed. The door closed behind them. Lucas moved straight to the table. The ledger, the photographs, the tape. All still there. He picked up the cassette, turned it once, then set it back down. Not yet. His eyes moved to the ledger. He opened it again, ran his fingers lightly over the pages. Names, dates, patterns, lives. Not random, not isolated, connected. Lucas closed it slowly. He looked around the cabin, not at the damage, not at the decay, at the structure, at the lines, at what it could be, what it had been, what it still was. Koda moved toward the doorway again, paused, then came back, satisfied, for now. Lucas stepped out onto the porch. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows through the trees. The wind moved through the branches, soft and steady, the same wind that had been here long before him, and would stay long after. Lucas leaned against the post, not relaxed, just still. Koda sat beside him, close. Lucas looked out at the land, the clearing, the tree line, everything his father had left behind, everything he had tried to protect. Not money, not a house, something else. Something harder to carry. Lucas exhaled slowly. They didn't take it, he said. Koda didn't move. They just thought they did. The words settled into the space around him. Lucas's hand dropped to Koda's back, resting there. The dog leaned into it. For the first time, not alert, not tense, just there. Lucas looked out at the horizon. The light fading, the shadows stretching, the world settling into night again. The fight wasn't over. He knew that. They would come back. He knew that too, but this time, he wasn't waiting for it to happen. He was ready for it. Because what he had been given wasn't land, wasn't a broken house, wasn't even the truth. It was a reason. Lucas straightened slightly. His eyes didn't leave the tree line. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Not to anyone. Not for anyone. Just a statement." Koda lifted his head, ears forward. The wind shifted again, carrying something new this time. Not danger. Not yet. Just change. Lucas stayed there as the last of the light slipped behind the mountains, the cabin behind him, the land in front of him. The past no longer something he was running from, but something he was standing on. And for the first time in a long time, Lucas Grant wasn't trying to survive what came next. He was ready to face it. And maybe that's the moment everything changes. Not when the past disappears, but when you finally stop running from it. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, I want to ask you something simple. Comment 1 if you would have stayed and fought for the truth. Comment 0 if you would have taken the money and walked away. No long messages, just one number. But I read every single comment, and I want to know what you would do. And if stories like this mean something to you, stories about loyalty, truth, and finding strength when everything feels lost, hit subscribe and stay with us, because the next story might hit even closer to home.